Hello and welcome back to the That's Metal production channel here at YouTube. Welcome to another album review. And as you can see by the title, I am reviewing Ave from Venom Inc. Now, this would definitely be considered the first album under this name, under the band name, as I mean. But technically this would be the fourth album for this band, or this lineup. Because this is basically the Tony Dolan era Venom, who of course, Venom era, who of course record albums such as Prime Evil, Temples of Ice, and The Wastelands. So Ave would be album number 4. But since this is basically the same situation that happened with Black Sabbath and Heaven and Hell, with Heaven and Hell being the Dio era of Black Sabbath, of course released only one album titled The Devil You Know. So, because same here, Venom Inc. is basically the Tony Dolan era of Venom, while the actual Venom is just Kronos and a couple of other members, even though that still is technically still the real Venom. Here, even this would be, because this is still the Tony Dolan era Venom for this album, because again, we got Tony Dolan, who of course played in other bands such as Autumncraft, really good new wave or British heavy metal band, and Abaddon, original drummer for Venom, and of course Jeff Mantis Dunn. And it's of course it's nice to hear Jeff Mantis' guitar tone again. I've always dug his guitar tone. But so with that, since Venom Inc. couldn't be called actually Venom, and for the longest time Jeff Mantis didn't want to take the name Venom anyway, but since this is kind of the same situation with Heaven and Hell and, well, Black Sabbath, this is kind of the same here. So, the album, of course, Ave, before I even get to that album, let me also bring up that Venom Inc. was formed last year, who, of course, were mostly at the time were being live acts, but there was always talk about whether or not they would actually release an album. Of course, fast forward to here, they actually have an album, and it was released on August 11th. So, let's finally get into the album itself, and I wanted to review this when it first was released, but surprisingly, I had something going. I was about to review it, but I never did. And I even had stuff written, but I never did. Probably because I had to give it some more listens, because it didn't quite click with me the first time, but the second time, finally, it was starting to really click with me. Third time, it's definitely still clicked with me, but I definitely do have, I guess, some little bit of issues or so with it, but it's only kind of minor, but it's something that also kind of sets a bit of my score down. But at the same time, most of it just comes, I think, from the quality and the writing here. The album, of course, starts off with Ave Satanas, with its spoken word intro, and before breaking into a kind of a slow, heavy track. Again, I think, though, I will definitely say that the music here is very much similar to the Tony Dolan era Venom albums. It definitely has a similarities to Temples of Ice and The Wastelands. It's definitely got more of that, and of course I like the Temples of Ice sound. That's a pretty good album there. And it's it's not really different from those albums, because again, this is the Tony Dolan era Venom sound. This isn't the Kronos era Venom sound. If you're going to this album thinking you were going to expect classic Venom, like Welcome to Hell, Black Metal, At War at Satan, or even Possessed, you ain't going to get that here. What you are going to get is just Venom from the Tony Dolan era. And if you didn't care for those albums, you probably would not care for this album anyways. But if you did like those albums, and you probably definitely would like a lot here, and since it's been out and you've never, and we're always kind of worried about checking it out, it's definitely worth the album. Sorry for going off course there. Again, like I was saying, the album starts off with Ave Satanas with its spoken word intro, and before going into a very mid-paced, sort of heavy track, it's definitely a good opener for the album, and it's definitely a good title track. but it's probably not one of the best songs here. Because as you get into like Forged in Hell and Metal We Bleed, these are probably the two of the songs where I think the album starts to really shine itself. These are really two really good songs, probably better than the original single or the song that was used to actually promote the album. That's of course was Dying Flesh, which is a song that comes at number 4. And the song at first, when I had listened to it, when it was released as a music video, I kind of liked it, but at first listen, it just seemed kind of pedestrian or some sort. That's to my register, but the more times I listen to the track, definitely the better it gets, but still isn't probably the best song on the album. And it's not to say that it's a bad track. It's a grower, but it's definitely not even one of the better, slower songs here. If anything, with some of the slower songs, even at times I almost kind of get that they were trying to, create stuff like The Gates of Hell, I think the track was called. The Seven Gates of Hell, I think the track was called. Yeah, Seven Gates of Hell. It's trying to really create stuff like that, or even some of the more kind of moody, more mid-paced stuff, or that you hear in the song At War with Satan, but not quite nearly getting as close to that. The only soul song that actually kind of gets some of it right is actually the song Preacher Man, which is, with its sort of melodic guitar intro, which kind of reminds me of some of that type of stuff anyway, and it's actually a track that I think is done way better than Dying Flesh. And it's probably the only of all the more slower, mid-paced stuff, just real ballady kind of stuff, I guess you can say, because of its feel, but it's one of the better songs in that sort of tone than Dying Flesh. Still, not a terrible track, but ain't the best. Of course, it picks back up, it sounds like Bloodstained or Time to Die. But then, of course, we get to The Evil Dead, and this is definitely another highlight for me on the album. It's a killer thrasher, and it just does it great. And of course, then, again, going to Preacher Man, definitely a highlight when it comes to the more slower tracks, one that I really like. Then, of course, after that is War. Definitely a classic track off of this one. It's just war. It sounds like it. This is definitely, of all some of the more really thrashier type of tracks off the album, this song would be up there. It's probably one of my top favorites, with not being too behind by the song Evil Dead. But for speed metal songs, Metal We Bleed is definitely one of the better ones. But let's not even forget the last track on here, titled Black and Roll. Definitely a nod to the earlier Venom albums, with of course black metal. Basically, it's kind of a little, for the listener who is new to this stuff and who is actually getting into it, it would be kind of a let you know of what they really started. Or what Venom started back then, but of course not during when Tony Dolan was in the band, when Kronos was definitely still, even though Kronos is still contained the Venom name, not trying to leave that out. But it's definitely one of the better speed metal songs in there, besides Metal We Bleed and Forged in Hell. Either way, there are definitely some good songs on here. One of the weaker ones, I guess, even on here is I Kneel to No God. It's definitely one of the weaker ones, not because of the title or so. I got no problem with the lyrics or anything. I know what Venom really are. I know what their lyrical themes are. I'm not no Christian or anything. But in terms of musical approach or so, it's one of the weaker songs here. Either way, it's definitely a good album, but definitely good. So with that, after going into some of the, songs or so, which ones were good or bad, whatever, it's time to get into the rating, and it'd be at 8.40. Solid album from Venom Inc. definitely when it comes to even the Tony Dolan era, it's definitely good. In that aspect, it works. But expecting old Venom, you really forget the point of what this era actually recorded. But is it better? Is it even on line with like albums such as Temples of Ice or The Wastelands or even Primeval? It might be one of the weaker ones in that aspect, but does that mean that it's still bad? No. 8.40 is just basically, it's a good album. But is it going to break down walls? No, it's not. It's not really on the weak side, because the more times you give it listen, the better it gets. But does that still mean that it's definitely the best Venom album in general? No. But in some ways, I still think from the very depths by the other Venom, the real Venom in a way, that's being fronted by Kronos, still, that album is actually still better than this. But does that mean that this album is bad? No, nothing to take away from this album. It's still a very highly enjoyable album from Venom Inc. But it's not the greatest Venom album here, and it's definitely not one of the better Tony Dolan era Venom albums, but it still is a solid album nonetheless. So, of course, this album was released on August 11th. I know there was a lot of people who have listened to this album, so if you're coming into this, definitely let me know what you think. Don't have to just say, oh my god, you gave it an 8.40, oh my god, you're a piece of shit. Don't, because I ain't going to respond back to you, and if you were even expecting me to actually get pissed or anything, I probably won't, but I probably would not even dislike or like your comment or anything. But either way, because it's just my opinion and it's just your opinion. But if you're coming in here not to shit on this review and are just going to give your or what you thought, that's totally fine. So, sorry to derail that little part. So, anyways, it's a solid album. So, until then, this is Heavy Special Sam out. I'll see you again. Take care.